Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universal Society of Albany. We especially welcome visitors to our service. My name is not Chuck Manning. I'm Albert DiSalvo. Chuck's a little taller and better looking than I am, but he's under the weather today, and he's asked me to step in for him. This is the annual Green Sanctuary Team Earth Day service. This year, we are focusing on the impacts of environmental problems in our own neighborhood and what can be done about them. We have invited Reverend Marc Johnson, who unfortunately also is ill today and cannot make it, but also we have two very, very strong speakers about environmental justice, Owusu Anane and Susan Cotner, and they will present their views on the situation. Councilman Anane is the Albany Common Council representative from the 10th Ward. He'll discuss environmental justice issues in Albany. Susan Cotner is the executive director of the Affordable Housing Partnership, and she will be discussing how Albany Unitarian Universal Society can assist the Affordable Housing Partnership in promoting a new $5 million grant program for homeowners in our neighborhoods to make repairs and improvements to their homes, which obviously is linked and should be linked, as Susan will tell you, to energy conservation. We will have our chalice lighting, so please join in the chalice lighting words that are shown on the screen. We welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning. We gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community.
Good morning. Our story today is unusual in that it doesn't really have a beginning or an end. And it is about a real place right here in Albany called the South End. The South End is a neighborhood containing homes, schools, businesses, and people. Many of the people who live there are people of color. When people don't have a clean environment to live in because of who they are, that's a kind of racism that we call environmental racism. Another unusual thing about our story today is that someone from our church has a big part in it. Brian Frank, a member of Albany's UU programs for Children and Youth Council, in addition to the other work that he does, was an important scientist on the study you'll hear about in our story. He will be available to talk at the coffee hour if you have any questions about the South End and about the issue of environmental racism. Okay, so getting back to the South End neighborhood. As we have said, it has homes, schools, businesses, and most important, people. It is also close to a very busy port on the Hudson River, where items are loaded onto and unloaded from big boats and sent to other places. There are also train tracks running through the South End. So many things headed into so many different places. Sometimes doing the things we need to live, like moving things around and making stuff, can have a bad effect on the air we breathe or the water we use. Dirty air makes it harder to breathe and can make people sick. When the trains in the South End started carrying oil tankers, some people got concerned as to whether this was safe or not. Excuse me. People in the neighborhood protested and demanded action. Eventually, scientists from the government began measuring the air and studying the results. Because of this study, the scientists knew that the truck traffic going back and forth through the neighborhood was the biggest part of the problem. There were over 1,000 trucks going past some people's houses every single day. Here is a picture of what 1,000 dots looks like. Now, imagine that in trucks on the road. The scientists also found out that while some of the trucks were going to the port, most of them weren't. Like most problems, this wasn't going to be easy to solve just by doing one thing. And it would take a long time, years and years, of people continuing to work on it to get even a little bit better. But because air is so important, people got to work. The mayor directed city trucks to travel around the neighborhood when they could. And another politician called a county executive stopped the oil tankers from rolling through. Government money was set aside to keep studying the air. Scientists worked hard to do this in ways that captured lots of useful information. Just recently, people who live in the neighborhood were recently given their own sensors to measure the air quality and have a way to report their findings. Kids from the elementary school got to tour a new van being used for a local university to measure the air quality in their area. And some learned about the connection between air quality and things like asthma. You might remember me saying earlier that this story doesn't really have a beginning or an end. You could say it started around 11 years ago when people began protesting about air quality. But really, it began even before that, when the things that cause pollution started happening in that neighborhood, but not in others. As for the end of the story, lots of good progress has been made, but it needs to continue. There are a lot of areas like the South End being studied that should be healthier for people who live in them. Also, pollution anywhere is bad for people everywhere. We are all connected. People who believe that everyone should be treated fairly when it comes to clean air and water can help support environmental justice. Environmental justice is the idea that having a safe, natural world for all people to live in is important. One way to help is by putting pressure on politicians to do the right things. Another is to listen to scientists who share important information as they learn new things. This is a story that goes on as what we know and what we can do changes, and we all have a chance to be part of it. So for now, instead of the end, let's just say to be continued.
What is environmental justice? Chuck got this definition from the National Resources Defense Council. Environmental justice essentially means that everyone, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, has the right to the same environmental protections and benefits as well as meaningful involvement in the policies that shape their communities. But rarely has this been the reality for people of color and those with low incomes. That's because virtually all the environmental injustice is shaped by the same patterns of racism and inequality that have existed in the United States since its founding and continue to influence every facet of our society, from education to housing to healthcare. Our first speaker will be Owusu Anane, and then followed by Susan Cotner. We will have a brief moment of silence after each speaker to reflect on their message. Councilman Anane.
Good morning. Yes. Just want to thank this hour for that wonderful introduction. Let's give him a round of applause, by the way, really quick, for picking up for Chuck today. Also, when I walked in, I know everybody's looking like, I know I look tall on TV, but this is actually my height. I'm glad to join you on this wonderful and beautiful Sunday morning. I'm pleased to be here today on the eve of Earth Day to discuss the solving environmental injustices. I was asked to describe what environmental injustice in just a few minutes, and I'll do my best and try what I can. First, I just want to remind everyone the state we are facing in this year's election. As we all know, climate change is an existential threat to our environment, locally, globally, and we need elected officials from all levels, from the federal, from the state, to the local level, to act with a sense of urgency. Our environment deserves bold leadership and timely leadership. And we need to make sure that the radical right does not win. Because if they do, everything that we have worked for, much will be lost. So let's make sure we vote and we get our friends, our family, our neighbors to get on board and vote in this election. With that said, what is environmental injustice? Said in the broadest way, it is another byproduct of generation of private and government-supported racism in our nation. At the core of environmental injustice are public policies, decisions that continue not to prioritize clean water and clean air. Those impacts are felt the hardest in communities that have bore the brunt of other components of racism, redlining, voter suppression, and other policies. I know that sounds familiar with some of the communities right here in our city, particularly when you think about the South End, the West Hill, Arbor Hill community, policies of redlining that have set communities, and I commend the mayor and other programs who are working continuously to correct the historical injustices of those communities. And everyone have a role to play, no matter what level of government, no matter what zip code you live in. Albany has a long history of perpetrated environmental injustice. One glaring historical example is the Sheridan Hollow, an incinerator that rained toxic sorted on many of our neighbors for decades and decades and decades. But thanks to tireless work and community advocates, that incinerator was shut down. That incinerator was shut down because people in this room, thank you. That incinerator was shut down by ordinary folks that said, we can do better. This should not be the norm. And that everyone health matter, no matter your zip code. And they wrote letters to legislators. They protested in the streets. They organized. And again, like many of my colleagues in union, when we fight, we will win. And I have no doubt that we will. But the health effects from the incinerator still continues to this day, because residents in the South End faces significantly high levels of pollution than wider neighborhoods. As someone who is the council member for the Pine Hills neighborhood, for those who are not familiar, it's a diverse neighborhood. We have renters, we have homeowners. And when you come around the Pine Hills neighborhood, you will see trees planted all across, and we always continue to advocate for more trees. But when you go into other neighborhoods, particularly the ones that I've mentioned, you will see sidewalks that need improvements. You will see lack of forestry. You will see a whole host of environmental impact justice that still continues. And we need individuals to continue to champion their voice and let elected officials know that what we see in these communities are unacceptable. And we still have water service lines that are made of lead. In the year of 2024, some of our communities still have lead pipes, lead paint. And I know that with this administration on a federal level, there are a lot of grants that are coming towards the county and local level to correct this injustice. Well, again, we need to continue to advocate. We need to continue to speak up regarding these injustices that we see. Albany communities of color has significant less access to green space compared to white neighborhoods. I know when we talk about the environment, the picture is often bleak. And we absolutely are not of other components of racism, redlining, voter suppression, and other policies. We have to continue to do more. We have to do enough to ensure every person has access to a healthy environment. But I also think it's important for everyone to understand that the tides are changing. We have come a long way. The tides are changing. Thankfully, more of our elected officials openly recognize the need for urgent environmental action. For the most part, we are no longer stuck trying to convince people that we have a problem. Most folks know we have a crisis on our hand. And my dad always say, one way to identify that there's a problem is to first admit that there is a problem. And I'm glad to see that our elected officials, those debates, particularly in the city of Albany and also in the state of New York, we're not going back and forth and understanding that we are in an environmental crisis, because our state leadership and our local level are taking the necessary steps. But we need to amplify our voice to encourage other states, particularly other states, to also follow suit. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I always are optimistic, because when I think about Albany, the first letter starts with A, the first letter in the alphabet. That means that we have to continue to lead. We have to be a beacon of hope for other municipalities, a beacon of hope for other capitals, a beacon of hope for other states. And the fact that we, as humans, particularly when you think about the environment, we have been the cause of these problems. But it also means that we also have the solutions to address the out of control environmental injustice that we see. I know on the council, many of my colleagues understand this, and we have made it a priority working in concert with Mayor Sheehan. But we need every state and federal official to understand this too. Here in the city of Albany, we have taken some necessary steps. particularly some of the accomplishments that we have had the past 4 years under the mayor and council members. We have purchased and converted 10,000 streetlights to LEDs. You can clap for that. That was some hard work. And the mayor actually has set a goal by 2025 to plant over 2,225 trees. We're well past that goal because, again, when you have executive people and leadership who prioritize these issues, anything can be accomplished. Another successful accomplishment that we have had as of January 2024, the city of Albany is 100% of its city operations electricity come from renewable energy. Yes. Also working with the mayor, we are investing $11 million to install EV charging stations, electrical fleets over the next 5 years. And no matter what neighborhood you're in, we are going to make sure that we have EV chargers and electrifying fleets over the next 5 years. Thank you. Another accomplishment that we're working with the mayor is that 43,000 gigabytes of greenhouse gas emissions have been saved from EV chargers to date, equal to planting over 1,200 trees and letting them grow 10 years. The goal of being carbon neutral by 2050, constructing a geothermal system at the Steamboat Square, completing the Beaver Creek Clean Water River project to improve water quality in Hudson River and quality of life around Lincoln Park, kicking off the development of comprehensive climate action right here in our city. Friends, addressing the climate crisis also presents us with a major opportunity to uplift historical marginalized communities, to become a carbon neutral economy. We need billions of dollars in investments in green infrastructure. That investment will spur the creation of several thousands of jobs. We need to be sure that these investments prioritize communities of color. And again, I know sometimes, when you look at the news, when the mayor come out with a comment, I usually kind of have a rebuttal when things are out of line. But when it comes to the environment, the mayor and I and many of our council colleagues are working tooth and nail to address the climate issues that we see in our community and the climate crisis. Sorry, give me 1 second. I have quite a few papers here. So we need to be sure that these investments, and the mayor, when I talk about making sure that we have looking at policies to correct the historical injustice, Councilmember Dorcia Plears, now City Auditor Dorcia Plears, in her second term passed an equity agenda that look at ways that communities that have been neglected get the resources of our budget. Particularly when we pass our budget every year of over $178 million. We want to make sure that we are correcting the historical injustices with our own city budget. And there was a report that came out, particularly when it comes to improvements of our sidewalks and services into our most challenging communities. And with that report, it shows that something that most of us know that have been following is that many of our communities have been neglected their fair share of city resources. And with this equity agenda, I look forward to working with my colleagues to really continue that fight of economic and also environmental injustice. So how do we address the climate crisis? Conserve 2 gigabyte goals. We have to preserve our environment for our future generation. And as I talk about the future generation, just a couple of days ago, I was invited to speak at a local elementary school. And when I was talking about some of the, I was a council member, I could see a little kid whispering to his friend. Well, if he's a councilman, I could be the mayor because I'm taller than him. And I tell you this because representation matters. You can't be what you can't see. And I think it's so important that we go into communities that, we are used to going and just tell them, like, we are here with you. We're going to stick together. We're going to pray together. We're going to work together. And we will make the Albany area, the capital region, the state of New York, a better place. So taking a huge step to address generational of economic injustice and economic inequalities that has halted many Black communities and communities of color across our state. So I will conclude, the power to bring environmental equity is within all of us. It's within all of us. Every single person in here can make a difference in their respective community. Whether it's organizing a cleanup, writing letters to your state representatives and local representatives, or just organizing small talks. As a council member, I remember when I first got elected, many of our communities were talking about having chickens in their backyard. And it was banned in the city of Albany. You could not have chickens in your backyard because many communities, remember when it was when we allowed it, there were so many people that would complain about the noise and that they make. But working with the mayor and my colleagues, we lifted that ban and we made sure that anyone in our city who wants to have chickens in their backyard can have it. And one of my colleagues always joke about it as one of my biggest accomplishments. It's like, that's the guy that have chickens in his backyard, especially some of my state friends. But it's important, particularly when you look at some communities that have a food desert, right? When you think about the South End, for example, and even the cost of eggs nowadays. I remember during COVID, a crate of eggs was about $6. I was joking with my friends, thank God we passed that legislation. But also, when you look at just having chickens in your backyard, food security, many of our communities, particularly Black and brown communities, don't have access to a vehicle. So for them to they have to get in a car, take a bus, go to Walmart in Glenmont, or go to Walmart in Guilderland, close to Guilderland. So when we allow people to have chickens in their backyard, it's not just environmental to protect the pollution, to reduce the carbon footprint, but also to have communities really have access to their own gardening and being self-sufficient in their own food, creating their own food. And so I'll conclude and begin. The power begin again with many of us in this room. Again, we have to be a voice to make sure that our policymakers are doing the right thing. I look forward to hearing from other speakers this morning. I look forward to chatting with every single person in here individually. And as the program continues, I just want to really, I know there's so many people that have really made an impact in the city as it relates to addressing environmental injustice from the bottom of my heart. And I know many of those people that you guys are helping on a daily basis and bringing attention to, probably don't see on a regular basis, but I want to thank every single member of this congregation. I want to thank you personally because you are making a difference. Whether sometimes you see that you're in a small group or a big group, you are making a difference here in the city of Albany. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Those of you who are natives of Albany probably remember when the city government and the Common Council was just a bunch of old line pals wedded to the old machine. And we are fortunate that so many of the newer people, the independent people, and the minority folks are now doing the kinds of work that Councilman Anane and others have been doing. But there's also a handful of people in this city who have been dedicated to the justice of affordable housing, homeownership, and decent housing for all. And I'm proud to say that Susan Cotner, who's been a dear friend of mine for many years, is one of those people. For almost 35 years, she has been dedicated to assuring that people have decent housing. So I invite her up now to speak.
35 years, I'm old. So thanks for having me. It's great to be here. It's great to be able to be in my position at a nonprofit affordable housing organization that gets to really work to implement the policies and programs that are being developed at the state and local level, and really help make those real for the families that live in our neighborhoods. My office happens to be in Sheridan Hollow, which was the site of that lovely trash incinerator. And I can tell you that we are working really hard with the neighborhood association. We've pulled together actually a Department of State brownfield designation so that we can bring more resources into the neighborhood to redevelop it. And there's been some fabulous work by Habitat for Humanity that also engaged in all those homes that are being built now are all clean energy. There's no fossil fuels in those homes, which is very exciting. We're working on an energy master plan, and we've got some geothermal going in to the neighborhood with the idea that eventually we're going to be networking that with the homes that are there, the existing homes. We've got solar panels going up on residents and in small commercial buildings. We've got a couple EV charging stations. So, again, we are excited to be able to access the resources that the state's making available, again, thanks to the great policies that our local officials are doing. When we got thinking about climate justice, it was kind of a natural outcome of the affordable housing work that we do, right? We've been working for a long time on helping families make sure that their housing mortgage payments are affordable, and then to think about extending that to their utility bills to make sure that the energy prices that they're paying are reasonable and also affordable. So we were able to take advantage of an opportunity to work with NYSERDA to participate in something that they are calling a clean energy hub, where they're contracting with not-for-profit organizations here in Albany and really throughout the state to connect low-income families in particular, our target audience, to the energy efficiency programs that are available. So the Clean Energy Hubs got organized to take that step of connecting families to resources. In the capital region, we serve 8 counties. There's 6 nonprofit organizations that are working together. And really our mission is to educate and inform families about what their options are to help with clean energy and to move towards energy savings. We provide, that hand-holding, that application assistance to help them access the resources. And as you were speaking about, helping to expand the clean energy workforce. We've got a lot of work to do, whether it's insulating attics or installing solar panels or working on other clean heat opportunities. We really want to help families take advantage of those opportunities. Part of our education program is, let's start with each individual family, right? Every one of us can take those first initial simple steps to reduce our energy footprint, which again just speaks to helping us overall reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we're using in the state and the nation. So part of our education program is those no-cost things. Lock your windows in the wintertime because that helps reduce drafts, right? Reduce your hot water use. Set back that thermostat to 120 degrees on your hot water tank. Remove those items that block the heating registers and the ducts, right? So that you have that good airflow. So start with those no-cost measures. Then shift to those low-cost measures, right? That setback thermostat, 68 degrees. Everybody, is hearing that that's kind of the magic temperature that you want your home at. That's the thing that's most efficient. Use those smart power strips to power off those chargers, right? Buy those. Use plastic on your windows, all that good stuff. And then the next step, when you're really to take that more costly approach, get a free home energy audit. This is what NYSERDA is offering through vetted contractors who understand building science, who will come into your home and help you evaluate areas where you can cut back on your energy use. The number one thing always is insulation and air sealing. Can we add more insulation to your attic? Can we add weather stripping so that we reduce those air drafts and make your home a lot more comfortable? Are there health hazards in your home? One of the things that we're finding, especially in older homes, is that there's not enough ventilation in a lot of the attics. And so there's a buildup of moisture, which leads to mold and is really impacting negatively the health of all of us as we tighten up our houses. So actually, that's where the announcement about the $5 million that we are receiving from New York State to help with home repairs comes in. What's been tough for a lot of low-income families is that their house really isn't ready for insulation yet because they have a roof leak, because they don't have any ventilation in their attic that would allow them to add insulation. So it's helping families address the existing health hazards that they have in their home, eliminate the mold, increase the ventilation, and do other work. NYSERDA is great at getting in and doing the assessment. And if you're very low income, they have some terrific incentives to help you make improvements. But unfortunately, it's not always enough money. So the new home repair grant will help people actually fully complete projects, and we're excited about doing that in targeted neighborhoods in the city of Albany. So more to come on that within the next month as we get up and running on that. One of the things that your energy auditor will say after they've evaluated the insulation levels in your home and air sealing is they're going to start looking at the equipment in your home and whether or not that makes sense to upgrade and convert to clean heat, as you all are hearing about, right? So there's three things that people are looking at when they're looking at clean heat to their home. One of the most affordable things to look at is your hot water tank. Can you move from an electric hot water tank to what's called an air source heat pump hot water tank? And again, air source heat pumps move the warm air and the energy in your warm air into energy to heat up the water in your hot water tank. And again, keep funding science, please, because the technology is really getting amazing in terms of these cold climate appliances that will work and find heat and energy even in very cool temperatures. So it's becoming much more efficient to do that. Two other ways to heat your home and air condition it, which is kind of nice sometimes for us as we face the wildfires and air pollution. Being able to live in an air-conditioned home is an important feature for a lot of low-income families, folks with asthma. Air source heat pumps will help you do that, right? Those are the vents, the air conditioning vents that convert into heat, again, using the warm energy found in the air and transforming it into either heating or cooling in your home. There are some really terrific incentives to help you install those new systems. NYSERDA offers incentives, National Grid offers incentives, and then there are the federal tax rebates and incentives that are tax credits that are coming. So our job as your energy advisor, as you're thinking about shifting to this new technology, is to make sure that you're aware of all the different incentives and that you're getting the right equipment in your home. So that's how you can reduce your energy footprint, right? Insulate, air seal, shift your heating equipment, and that's really super important. As we think about our grid system and how will it handle all this electrification work. The good news for us in upstate New York is that we have probably the cleanest grid in the country because we've got a lot of hydropower, we've got good community solar programs going, and nuclear is a part of that clean grid. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that the grid is a lot of times fueled by natural gas. So it is something that, again, we want to just reduce our energy footprint. That's something each one of us could do. I could do a better job with. But at the same time, we want to go to that renewable energy, and that's solar, right? And again, every one of us in this room can participate in a community solar program, or you can put rooftop solar on. Again, rooftop being the ideal, because much more of your electricity is covered when you can do your own rooftop panels. I recently switched to air source heat pumps, so now I'm very motivated to look at rooftop solar to help, again, reduce that energy cost, that electric cost that I'm now going to have as a result of that heat pump going into my home. I think I'm getting 50% off of my rooftop solar just from the federal tax credits and the state incentives. So now, if you're at all thinking about it, is a really great time to look at the financial benefits to thinking about solar. Again, we can help connect you to some really reputable solar companies. NYSERDA's got a great list on their website, so we want to get that information out. That's really our job, is to help you get informed about that. So again, good incentives for very low-income families, and that's our target focus. We'd love to work with you as you're working in the neighborhoods surrounding this wonderful congregation and working in your communities. We'd love to get brochures and information out to you so that as you're talking to your neighbors, they can access these programs. We'll help them do that. But again, anyone of any income, there's an incentive for you. So it does start very much within ourselves, right? Getting LED light bulbs installed in your home, taking that first step to reduce our footprint and really working with families on making sure that everyone's aware of the opportunities to really help implement the great policies and programs that are being developed. Thanks.
My name is Sandy Stubing, and I'm a member of the very active Green Sanctuary Committee. Before the benediction, I want to thank Susan and Owusu for coming and being with us this morning and delivering a very important message that we do pay attention to in this congregation, but it's always worth hearing. And also, given that our offering is going to share the Sheridan allowance for renewable energy, I want to welcome people to talk to David Musser. David, and during the coffee hour, because he's a very active member of SHARE, and he can tell you more about it. So our benediction. May we depart from this sacred gathering with hearts ignited by the call for environmental justice. May we be stewards of the earth, mindful of our 7th UU principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. As we go forth, may we work tirelessly to heal the wounds inflicted upon our planet, advocating for justice for those most affected
by environmental degradation. May our actions reflect our reverence for creation and our commitment to leave a legacy of sustainability and equity for future generations. Amen.
Please join us as we extinguish the chalice with the words that you'll see on the screens. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.